Hi there, welcome back. Welcome to another installment of 'Tis the Season here at Sunnyside Journals. If you're new here, welcome. I'm Catherine. I am working on what's going to be a Christmas journal from this book. This is a book that didn't have a publication date in it, but I did know the publisher, and sometimes that'll give you at least a hint of a window of time that it could have been published in, especially a lesser known publisher, because usually they got bought out and absorbed into larger publishers. And that's exactly what happened in this case. And this publisher was publishing books between 1895 and 1902. So I know that this book is was published at some point between 1895 and 1902. So it's old, but it was falling apart, and even a few of the pages were missing. It already came gutted for me. Half the work was done because the insides were already falling out and pages were missing, and it needed a new happy life, and certainly being a Christmas journal will be a happy life. But it was Dombey and Sons. It is a Dickens book, but it was Dombey and Sons. I've covered that up with lace, which two purposes: to cover up Dombey and Sons, but also because the head and the foot of the spine were the only part of this cover that was utterly falling apart and wearing away and not going to last much longer. And now that'll be really nice and sturdy for a long time. I glued it on and I sewed it on. I don't know if you can see. Let me see if I can. There is stitching from my sewing machine. Sometimes these old books are soft enough that if you go slowly, you can put your sewing machine right through the cover, and that just really ensures that that lace is going to stay down and stay in place and do the job I wanted it to do. So today I'm just going to finish up working on something that I love doing. If you follow me, you know that I love creating faux carte de visite from finding old photos of carte de visite in books, because for a long time I wasn't able to find any. I have, thanks to generous people who have shared what they have with me, I do have quite a few now, but I'm still careful. I use them sparingly, putting them into very special journals that I create. I'll use an actual one, and it's one of the few things I'm not too proud to scan and make a faux one of the real one that I would keep. Anyhow, I did have this book that I love, The English Miniature. First of all, I enjoyed reading it and reading the history of miniatures. And it's just a wonderful book that there's no, I never pay full price for a book. So it was either from a thrift store, which I doubt because I don't see where the price tag, I would have left the price tag on if this was from a thrift store. So I suspect I got it at my dollar church book sale. And it's just a marvelous book on the history of the little pictures that they used to carry around. The people that could afford it would commission a little portrait, tiny little portrait that they could carry around of their loved ones. And as soon as I saw these color pictures, I thought, oh my goodness, I'm seeing faux miniatures in my journal's future. And so like I said, first of all, I enjoyed simply reading about the history of miniatures. Quite often they were watercolor, which amazed me, that they got these vivid, beautiful details. There we go. Using watercolor. It just shows you the, people that think, oh, you've got to do oil or you've got to do gouache or acrylic. They Those talented artists were able to pull it off with watercolor. And anyhow, I just thought, because this book is Mrs. Fezziwig's party planner, because although Mr. Fezziwig held the party for his employees in the book A Christmas Carol, I'm quite sure his wife was behind the scenes making the plans for that, because it looks like the two of them, from the picture of them in the book, in the original book, the two of them quite enjoyed themselves having parties. So the first thing I did, that's not in here, was created a Dutch door with the picture from A Christmas Carol. So if you haven't heard this term before, I learned it through actually following, there's a few bullet journalists, artistic bullet journalists, their channels that I follow. And I learned about Dutch doors through bullet journaling. And that's actually how I learned about junk journaling years ago, was through bullet journaling, because I've always kept a bullet journal, and followed some bullet journal creators, the artsy ones. I never have done an artsy bullet journal. I tried, and it was too much to keep up with. Anyhow, thanks to YouTube, this was years ago. Thanks to YouTube, it said, it had, you know how YouTube will suggest, you might enjoy this video, and it said junk journal. And I thought, junk journal? Because of course I enjoy journaling, I enjoy junk, and I immediately was intrigued. And as soon as I watched the video, and I'm not even sure whose video it was that I watched, but I thought, I've got to do this. I've got to do this. And the ones that intrigued me the most, when I started binging, utterly binging on junk journals, was the people that created journals out of old books as their cover, rather than making the covers. I just thought, oh my goodness. And of course, I've got several thrift stores in town. And then I discovered my little church book rummage sale, that has been so generous with me over the years. Anyhow, I'm already off topic. So, honest to goodness, I can't remember where I was going with that. Oh, the faux carte de visite. So, what I decided I wanted to do was, I was reminded of this English miniature, and I thought the Fezziwigs were obviously extremely comfortable, because look how jolly and lovely they are. It was very rare back in Victorian England, even for wealthy people, to be overweight. As far as, think about it, sweets and that, fattening the food up, having that much extra food, and such, and having a lifestyle where you're not working so hard physically, so you had staff that were doing the hard work around the home or around where you worked. You know, a farmer would be burning their calories, whereas Fezziwig, running his office, might be sitting at his office chair and then and wandering out into the main room where the other clerks were, and that sort of thing. So, so to be a little bit Renoirish, round and nicely padded, was a rare thing. So I thought, I'm going to look through my miniature book here, and see if I can find a miniature of a couple that could possibly be the Fezziwigs, and that these were maybe the little portraits that each one of them carried around in their pockets or little purse. And sure enough, I found one. Honestly, I think it looks like a young Mr. Fezziwig. look at that. Even look at the wig and the hairline of the wig, that it comes like that. If you look at this picture of Fezziwig, it's the same hairline. So I am thrilled. I think we are looking at the very image of Mr. Fezziwig himself. And so I did what I always do. I take the picture, I glue it onto cardstock, I save cardstock from the backs of pads of paper and boxes and old puzzle boxes and things like that. And so in this case, this one would have been for Mrs. Fezziwig to carry around of her dear husband. And I simply used gilding wax to cover the back and the edges and around the little frame. And so that one's already done. Now I still need to finish Mrs. Fezziwig's that Mr. Fezziwig might have carried. And I thought this lady looked very, very cheerful and happy and well nourished. And so she's going to be the little miniature that perhaps he tucked in his coat pocket every day as off he went to work. And so I've already got started. See what I mean when I say I save all my chipboard? And somebody was using this for doing their mathing, and boy, I was so impressed with what I saw added up, lines and lines on the back of this paper. I couldn't do it. This was the same way, so that's how well gilding wax will cover up things underneath. Now for Mrs. Fezziwig's miniature, I'm going to use scrapbook paper to put on the back, and then I still may use a little bit of gilding wax around the edge. So I've already used my crafting knife to cut her little piece of cardstock off of the board. But before I go any further, before I bust out my sanding block, it's better to glue on the back of the paper ahead of time. Let me get a paper to work on. Here we go. Because we're going to be using the glue stick, and we're going to be using some art glitter glue and glue stick. And then we'll be putting this on. I did my best to center that design so that it will be in the center of Mrs. Fezziwig's little miniature portrait. So, yeah, let's just get to it, and then I'll talk and try and remember what it is I was going to say while I'm doing it. So for the center portion, I'm just using my trusty old glue stick. Nancy got me onto this one, Nancy from Wishes and Weeds, and I gotta tell you, she's right. She tried them all, because I didn't like glue stick for years. I refused to even use it. I found that you could just peel it right back off again after it dried. But she discovered Target glue stick, and I don't know who makes it for them, but honestly, it's awesome glue. So it's still, the little corners will try and loosen up. So I will still go around edges of really important things with art glitter glue. Because art glitter glue, that's the paper glue. If you ask me, you can't beat art glitter glue for holding paper. You just can't. All right, so I'm going to flip this over, and I'm going to take Mrs. Fezziwig, and I know that I've got a little bit of room around the edge for this. And she should be centered quite nicely. And if I don't move quickly, it will just be what it is. and that's okay too. All right, so I'm just going to give that a good press. Turn it over and give it a good press. And then I'm going to find my iron. Hold on. It was across the room holding something else down. I love this iron. It's an 8-pound iron. No wonder our foremothers had muscles ironing with this thing. 8 pounds. When I think of what my iron weighs, I should say my husband's iron. I don't know. I iron fabric sometimes if I don't want wrinkles. But otherwise, I try to only iron hair. My hair. And I even will use my hair iron on little pieces of fabric here in my art studio. I have several hair irons left over from my days of working in a salon because we'll talk while we press. Hairstylists own their own gear in most salons. So at their station, the gear that you see, partly it's because we're fussy and everyone likes different manufacturers or products for different reasons. And also partly because usually the salon just can't be providing gear to every single stylist because they come and go. It's the way servers come and go in restaurants. Anyhow, so I had 3 sets of gear during my working days. I had the gear in my station at the salon so that I didn't have to take it back and forth. When I say gear, I mean several different sizes of curling irons, flat irons, for a while there when it was in style, crimping irons, hair dryer, scissors, several different kinds of scissors, that sort of thing I would have that stayed in my station at the salon I worked at. Then I also had some in a bag because I would do on-location hair, a lot of on-location hair, especially bridal hair at special occasions. I would go, I could make very good money doing bridal hair. And plus I loved it very much. That was probably my favorite thing to do as a hairstylist is bridal hair. And then, of course, I had my gear for at home because I don't know any hairstylists that don't do home hair. For me, it was just enough to do my family. Holy moly, with all the kids and their partners and their children and such, and friends and family, my mom, my dad, and sisters-in-laws and nieces and nephews. I needed a whole... So, long story short, I have several hair flat irons, so I can have the one that I use in my bathroom, but I can still have one here in my studio to use on paper and on little, if I want to flatten out, say, some sari silk, you can just run it right through your flat iron, your hair flat iron. Just keep that in mind when you're at a thrift store and you see flat irons there all the time at thrift stores. If you see one for a good price, grab it, keep it in your studio, keep it on your art desk because it'll come in handy. I'm telling you. All right, let me put my iron over here. All right, so Mrs. Fezziwig, you now have a prettier backing on you. Let's cut off this paper. And then we're going to get out our good old trusty sanding block. Uh-oh. Oh, hopefully that's all right. Sanding blocks. Oh, I use mine just about every day. It's very hard to use scissors on once you've got one side of chipboard. To do just this little corner, not a problem, but to try and cut along there, see how eventually it hits the handles of the scissors? So you're much better off using your craft knife or an X-Acto knife of some sort. There we go. All right, now we get out our sanding block. This is my favorite one. You can get sanding blocks at your dollar stores. I've seen them there. The ones I've seen tend to be coarser grit, and I like a really fine paper, so this one just suits me fine because I can replace it when it's wearing down. And then what you're going to do, I just call it like a waterfall. You're going to do a curving effect and taking off that sharp edge. Oh, you might wonder why those are nicked. I like a round edge when I'm making a faux carte de visite, or in this case a faux miniature. And there once was a time I used to be sanding and sanding and sanding and sanding to make the corner, and then I thought, what am I doing? And I just used my scissors and clipped it off, and it gets the job done much faster, because then you only have two tiny little edges that need to be rounded. Just do your best, eyeball it so that you've got the same size amount that you've nicked off the edge there. I do the same thing when I'm making a Two Nanas bookmark. So just take that sharp edge off. It really, really is worth the time to do this. It will make it look like you've got the real deal in your hand, or almost the real deal. And it just gives a really, really nice finished appearance to your faux carte de visite, or your faux, in this case, miniature. And I can see how we could make I just happen to have that book on miniatures, but I can see how a book of paintings, if you happen to have a small painting in the book, like I've got lots over there, books of artwork from, the Louvre and all that sort of thing. I think we all have that. How you could make your own miniature using just a smaller portrait painting. I find this part of it very relaxing, doing the sanding. Very relaxing. So here we're going to just do the same thing on this side and take off that sharp edge. So it's like a 45-degree angle to take it off and round it off. And first of all, you won't get paper cuts from it. And if you didn't cut your paper quite close enough when you put your backing on it, it'll finish taking it off to the right width. So you can see why I needed the art glitter glue around the edge, because this kind of vigorous sanding, I would have probably, even as good as the Target glue stick is, I probably would have been pulling up that scrapbook paper. This wants to... I don't mind if it's a little beaten up, because if it's supposedly from the 1840s, it's going to be a little beaten up. There, I think That feels good. Feel around the edge. Make sure it's just a nice soft edge so that the little card feels good in your hands. Feel your little corners, that they're nice and rounded and not, this still feels, I can still feel a ridge there. So I'm still going to press that down with a credit card. In this case, what's this? Oh, I went on a cruise. Oh, someday I'll go on another cruise. Not this year, but someday. There we go. All right, now this, I don't know whether it's I Was Vigorous, whether it's the chipboard. I'm just going to show you, you probably already know it, a little trick. Put a little dab of glitter glue into, because those are layers, right? Chipboard is just layers and layers of paper. And mash it in there and then pinch it. And that will, I'm just putting my pin in here while I'm pinching with my left hand. I'm pinning my bottle of glue with my right hand. Multitask. All right. Oh, now I don't want to glue my hand to it. All right. Now, we don't need you. I need you. So I'm going to use Vintage Photo. And first I want to cover up the core where it's showing the chipboard. I want that all a nice even color. Even though I most likely will also be going over this with gilding wax. Or gold ink. I'm not sure yet which one. In case that wears off, this will be underneath. And then I also want to, where's a brush? Go around the edge. That's that corner. I'm doing it too soon. I should have been more patient, but I want to be able to finish this while we're still together. Hope you're doing well. We're having a nice sunny day, but it is cold out there. But it's November, so that's to be expected. And quite frankly, now that I'm no longer menopausal, I love the cooler weather. I love sweater weather. I love a reason to bundle up in sweaters. I'd much rather have the house cool and wear a sweater. Really, really love sweater time. And of course, when I was menopausal, I'd still have the house cold and be wandering around in t-shirts. Those of you know. Oh. All right, so that looks really, really pretty. And there is our Mrs. Fezziwig. She doesn't have a first name in the book, which is common, just like Mrs. Cratchit. We don't know her name. Many movies and plays give them names. Quite often, Mrs. Cratchit is referred to as Emily, but Dickens certainly never named her Emily. And I like to think that usually the first two children in a family were named after either a grandparent or the parents themselves. So I like to think that maybe their oldest daughter, Martha, that maybe Mrs. Cratchit's name was also Martha. It's one of those times where I'm glad that that tradition died off, because much as I loved my mother, her name was Geraldine. And I'm very grateful to have the lovely name she gave me of Catherine as opposed to Geraldine. But I did get her middle name, so that's nice. And my daughter got her middle name, and I actually have several. We have so many grandchildren. I have a few grandchildren with that middle name, so that's nice. And as it turns out, once I started doing the family tree, my great grandmother's name was Catherine, so spelled the same way. So there we go. There's my miniature that we created together of possibly Mrs. Fezziwig. It looks uneven here. That had me a little frustrated, but it's actually the actual frame of the miniature that is, because this is a photo of, there actually was a miniature of this. Someone owns it. It says in the book somewhere. And that's the frame of it sticking in. So this actually is, I kept checking and rechecking to make sure it was square, and it is square. So there we go. We've got Mrs. Fezziwig, and we've got Mr. Fezziwig that I'm going to have to find places to put them in to Mrs. Fezziwig's party book, because perhaps her daughter Isabel inherited her mother's book and continued the tradition of putting party ideas in it, and kept her parents' miniatures inside this book. Who knows? Those are the things that I like to imagine. Isn't it funny? I'm almost 65 and still playing make-believe. But I don't know if you do that when you're making journals, if you imagine and give it a life of its own and give it a name of its own. But I do. Anyhow, I hope you have a great rest of your day. And if you're still here, thank you for joining me. Say hi down below, and I'll say hi back at you. And if you're new and you like to just sit and watch while someone's working at their desk, because I don't usually do tutorials per se, I just get to work and try and remember to explain what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. And that's usually the way my videos turn out. So, have a great rest of your day, and I'm going to get back to work on this book, and there'll be new things to show you next time we get together. Take care. Bye.